All right, welcome to another episode of Building Software Better podcast. I've got an awesome guest here, Rick Blalock. We go back a long, long time, at least more than a year, right, Rick? That's long
At
for
least a
me.
year.
At least a year.
It's maybe like 150 tech years.
Exactly. So that's like three versions of Java or something. I think. So I don't know how long we've known each other. We've worked together on and off for many years now.
Since 2010, yeah, is when I
Wow.
joined Accelerator. Yeah.
So that's like at least two versions of Java, right? So that's good. Or maybe
Right.
100 versions of Node, probably not quite.
Yeah, right.
Although
Exactly.
Node's slowed down a lot these days. So,
Right.
well, you're interesting in a lot of ways. Most interesting man in the world, not just because you're named Rick and you Rickroll people a lot, but
It's the bald head.
and certainly not because you're a bald head. I mean, that doesn't make you that interesting. I think you're interesting because you're a lot like me. You've got sort of this very deep technical understanding and background, and you've been a lifelong developer, and you're very technical, but you also have an entrepreneurial streak. You're a business-minded thinker. And I think that's what makes you actually an awesome, technical executive leader. So that's kind of why I wanted to have you kind of come on and talk to us. But probably most interesting is, and I'm going to let you give your own background. But what's most interesting is you've just recently made a transition, kind of beginning of the year, on a side hustle you've been working on for a very, very long time, your own passion project. And you're now doing it full time as an entrepreneur. So I want to very specifically kind of get into that. Before we do that, though, let's talk a little bit let you give you a little bit about your own background in your own words. Tell us the resume of Rick Blalock.
The resume of Rick Blalock. Well, 50 years ago.
Not that old.
Yeah,
Like before?
Yeah, right. It's funny. I didn't go to school for computer science or anything like that. I started coding in high school to hack video games so I could make it do what I wanted to do. So it was, no formal training there or whatever. But I had a buddy who wanted a website when I was in college, and I started working on it that way. And then I wanted to be a pilot. I had my instrument rating, and I was working on my commercial and all this other stuff. And then things kind of changed. I ended up going to Peru and then working on the side, building websites and stuff like that. Came back to the States right around the time the iPhone came out, and then right after that, Titanium came out, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Let me try this out." And lo and behold, I found myself working for you at Accelerator.
Right.
Which was awesome.
You had a number of different roles, but tell us a little bit about the different kind of roles you've played over the years.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. So I was running my own business, the services job before Accelerator, and remember Scott from the VP of Marketing. What's his last name? I can't remember his last name. Yeah, Squarshoff. Yeah. So he's the one who called me and mentioned that you guys were hiring. And I was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to work for somebody, blah, 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 blah. And my dad said, well, Rick, just try it. Just try it for 6 months. And if you don't like it, you can go back to doing whatever. It doesn't, whatever. All right, I try it. So I actually joined Accelerator as a support engineer. And that was right when like the support thing was starting. Everything was, just kind of blowing up there right before version 1, I think.
Yeah,
right around version 1, I can't remember.
That's
and
right.
So
2009-ish, right? 2009?
2009, 2010. I joined in 2010, so it was just right after that.
Yeah, so it was right after you, because we launched the first version, I think that fall of 2009, the first paid pro plan, I think we called it.
Yeah, it was just right after that.
Okay.
And that's where like you all needed support staff and all that kind of stuff. So I joined doing that. I did that for like 6 months, in the trenches, answering all sorts of people's crazy questions. But I got to say, I learned more in those 6 months on how Titanium works just by answering people's questions than I think actually maybe some of the engineers that built it.
That's true.
Knew.
It's very true.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then so I went from that to working on a bunch of apps for customers at Accelerator when we had the services arm. and then pivoted to being the director of product architecture. We worked together on Arrow and some of the analytics and some of that stuff right before the acquisition.
That's right. Yeah. And then after the acquisition, what happened? Where did you go after that?
Yeah. So right after that, right around the same time we were acquired, Strong Loop was acquired by IBM. And I jumped over there to that division of IBM to work on their API Connect and that kind of stuff, which was great. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why are you going to IBM? It must have been terrible, whatever." But the group I was in was awesome. Like, I didn't have any problems that everybody says that they had. And at the time, when I joined, they had just switched from Lotus Notes to some web-based thing. So everybody's like, "Oh, Lotus Notes, it's terrible." I never used it, so I wouldn't know.
You bypassed that. And you had a few other Appcelerator people over there. Like Dennis was running the team I think you were working with, right? And there was a couple of Jamil, I think he's probably
Dennis,
still,
Jamil, Thomas Wilkinson. Yep.
Yeah,
they were there.
A number of ex-AppC people that had moved over there, and Strong Loop was sort of like a different in a lot of ways, but similar to Arrow, and so somewhat competitive. And you'd been working on Arrow, so that was just as APIs and backend as a service and all that was really taking off.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All the API gateways and all that stuff in the mid.
What was the most interesting thing you worked on at the Big Blue, as they call it?
Ooh. So I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the customer, but it was a big giant customer in Orlando,
right?
And building their APIs for one of their parks, and that was awesome. That was really, really cool. I was there for 13 weeks, just working on APIs. Yeah, on site, on a theme park. Working on APIs for a theme park. Who knew?
That's wild. That's wild. Who knew? Yeah, that's really cool. And then what happened after that?
Yeah, so that's when you guys started Pinpoint, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm all about that." So I joined Pinpoint right when you guys were starting. I don't know if I was employee 1 or 2 or.
Yeah, I think you were second employee, right? Because we got our seed round. I think it's right after we got our seed round, right? You joined us when we could actually pay people.
Right. Yeah, so I was there for the initial onset of it. We did a bunch of stuff. I think it was in Vue. We used like Vue for the front end at the time and some other stuff.
You're right.
Yeah, and then my mom got sick through that, and then she ended up passing away with brain cancer. And so I just, I couldn't concentrate. Like what I was literally doing, I was like coding and doing stuff while going through that, and I just so I think the end of the year, I told you I needed a break and I needed to step away, just to get out, away from like the stress of a startup and all that kind of stuff. And then my mom. So I bailed from that for a little bit. I worked at a AI solutions company here, just running engineering. So didn't do anything technical. It was just mainly people management, and then
you didn't do anything stressful.
Yeah, well,
managing people, that's not stressful.
Honestly, it wasn't nearly as stressful as startup world. Yeah, right. So we did like computer vision projects for a lot of companies like Royal Caribbean and stuff like that. So I ran that engineering team, and then I knew I didn't want to work for a services company for a long time. I liked it. I loved the people that I worked with, but I knew that wasn't a long-term thing. And so then I came back to Pinpoint, and then worked there for a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half.
And now it's sort of end of the year, beginning of the year. You've got this passion project that I mentioned early on. So you got this passion project. I'm going to let you talk a lot about it because I think it's really amazing. That you've been doing for a long time. I don't even know how long you've been doing it. You should tell us a little
2012.
2012. I mean, it's incredible. And I want you to describe it because I'm not going to do it justice the way you can. And so you've now decided Rick Blalock is not just a director of engineering or solutions architect or an engineer. You're going to be an entrepreneur, Rick Blalock, entrepreneur, which you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. But this is like taking your side hustle and turning it into a full-time startup kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about what that side hustle, that passion project is, and then now tell us about kind of where you're going and sort of what kind of went into that decision. That's a really big decision to go from what you were doing as a side thing to full-time gig.
Yeah, it is a big decision. And every day I'm like, do I know what I'm doing?
I still do that. I've been doing this for 30 years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So the app that we started with is called Fish Rules, and it's for the simplest way to explain.
PHIS, Fish Rules, like, you know, the band Fish, like they rule, and it's like a music app.
Fishing rules. We love to fish, email fish, you know. Fish.
Exactly. Fishing, email fishing rules, how to do fishing, how to fish, steal people's identity. Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, exactly. No. So we were out, me and my buddy, who's my business partner now, we were out fishing, and we were kind of debating about what's the one thing that every fisherman has in common, because there's not a lot. They're all very opinionated. They do things very differently. Like literally, he will not, my business partner sometimes will not tell his own brothers where a fishing spot is. Right. So it's kind of funny. But anyway, we were debating that, and I was like, well, why don't we start like a specialized social network for fishermen, because it's a huge community. There's 49 million licensed anglers in America. ASA says there'll be 60 million by the end of the year, this year.
Right. Much money for that.
Yeah. So, you know, so we're like, hey, let's do that. And then he was like, social network. The problem with that is only a few, or there'll be certain types of users that'll love it, and then there'll be a lot that just absolutely hate it. And so we were kind of debating. And the one thing we came to that everybody has in common is they have to obey the rules. And the rules are crazy complex. Nobody understands them. It doesn't matter if you're an expert or you're a beginner. Forget about it. So I'm in Martin County, Florida.
It's like tax code. It's like the tax code.
Yeah, it really is.
Fishing regulations.
Right. And the problem is it's a fisherman. Like, why does he need to know about tax code stuff, right? So like, I'm in Martin County right now, and I'm not allowed to catch a checkered
part of the world?
Florida, Martin County, Florida. Okay. And I'm not allowed to catch a checkered puffer fish here. But if I go 500 yards that way, I'm in Palm Beach County, and I can keep it. No problem. I can get a big ticket, like $250, $300 here. Over there, you can keep it, do whatever you want with it.
That's insane.
Just as an example.
Why is that? Like, well, before we dive into like, why is that? Is it just
so
laws and regulations, or is there some rational?
There is. So it's called fisheries management, and it's how the scientists figure out, you know, like how much tonnage of a species of fish are in this area, how fast do they reproduce, you know, they spawn and all that kind of stuff. And so they figure all the stuff out, that how many people are catching this fish, all the stuff. And they kind of estimate this is how much tonnage of fish is in this area, and this is how it's replenished. And so when the different management councils or people that manage those waters determine, hey, we're getting low here, they can cut off a season, or they can adjust how many you're allowed to catch a day, and all that kind of thing.
So that's what drives the laws. That's what drives the like regulations around how many you can fish and where and size and all that. Okay.
Right. And it's a big deal. It's not just like oh, we don't want you to catch this fish anymore because shame on you. I'll use Florida as an example. Florida, you know, there's over 20 million people come to Florida every year just to fish.
Wow.
Just the recreational fishing industry is bigger than the space industry, citrus industry, and cattle industry here, just in Florida. So, you know, if you got 20 million people that come here and there's no fish that they're trying to catch, that kind of hurts Florida. So it's important, you know.
Okay. Yeah. And so this app then helps fishermen manage the rules around what they can catch and can't catch and things like that.
So at a glance, they can open up the app really quick. It figures out what regulation boundaries you're in using point and polygon algorithms. It goes, okay, you're in this regulation boundary. And then all it does to the fishermen is just show them, hey, here's the fish that are regulated in your area. And then you can tap on the one that you caught and go, oh, I can catch 5 of these, or throw it back.
Exactly. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, or that.
drive the boat 500 yards, that way, and we'll be good.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Exactly. So that's how we started, and it was kind of like It was a prototype. We just like, hey, let's just try this, see if people like it. Aubrey's my business partner. He literally did all the regulations in a spreadsheet. And I just took the spreadsheet and uploaded it to a server, and the app would download it just to try it out. You know, it was like super scrappy.
MVP.
And by the way, that spreadsheet was the first time anybody's ever like collated all those regulations together in like a unified spec. Because it's crazy. Like you go to all these different websites, you'll get a PDF, you'll get, you know, the legalese, you know, who knows what you get. So that's how we started, and it kind of took off, and we're like, oh yeah, people actually think this is useful, which is great.
And it's continued to grow dramatically, like over the last, you know, however many years now, right? 10 plus years now, a little bit over 10 years, almost.
It has. Yeah, it has. And up until a week and a half ago, we never monetized the user directly. So we have Florida, which is FWC. They're a customer of ours. The government is NOAA, South Atlantic and Gulf federal councils that manage the federal waters. They're customers. Hawaii's a customer. U.S. Caribbean's a customer. So the government's actually ended up being our customers, and we never planned that. It just kind of happened that way, where they ended up seeing huge value because they have a compliance story they have to tell. They have to be able to tell anglers about the changes and get feedback back and, you know, all that kind of thing. So that ended up being the customer primarily up until a week and a half ago.
Right. That's amazing. So then it's a mobile app. Is it run on iOS, Android as well? I mean, both kind of cross-platform?
Yeah, it's iOS, it's Android, and it's on the web now.
And you have a web version now? Okay.
Yes, we have a web version now. And it's funny. So, you know, it was titanium originally for obvious reasons. And then actually, I think we used the app in our QA cycles, I think sometimes because we would run through it just because it was a real life app that we could all touch and play with and break and whatever.
We knew the person doing it, you know, so.
yeah, right. But it was titanium first, and then I switched it over to Swift and Kotlin. Honestly, it was one of those, the only reason I did it is because I wanted to learn Swift and Kotlin. It was just me being, right. So I switched it over. It was awesome. It ran great and everything. But as of January, I completely rewrote it. It's the third time we redid it now and since 2012. And it's all in React Native, which is great because the web is React and this is React Native. And I have a shared JavaScript library, actually, that even the native Swift and Kotlin used for our business logic and stuff. So it's nice and cohesive, you know.
Nice. And so then, okay, so what was sort of the calculation that said, okay, I've been doing this now almost 10 years, and they're, you know, kind of accidental, I like to call it accidental customers, because it wasn't like you had this business plan to go out and go get a bunch of government customers. And that opportunity, like any good entrepreneur, that kind of presented itself, it sounds like, right? And then you sort of took advantage of it, you know, over time. But you were still doing it on the side, which is kind of amazing as a side business. At some point, we need to sort of do this full time. I mean, what was that sort of calculation in your head?
Well, it was a couple things. Is opportunity. You know, what's the opportunity of this side business? Is it always going to be a side business? Or is it not? And you look at it, and you've got other fishing apps that aren't regulation based or what we do. They have 10 million users and more. Then you have other things going on in the industry. Like I said, there's supposed to be 60 million anglers from 49 million at the end of the year. So, you know, there's growth there and there's opportunity. So there's that. The fact that we've only cracked, you know, 3 agencies or 4 agencies, government agencies as customers, and there's a lot more out there. So so there's that kind of opportunity, which is interesting. It solves an interesting problem. It's about ocean sustainability and fisheries management, and it's all very important stuff. So that's on the opportunity side. Then on just like the what do you call it, like just the grassroots, like scrappiness of everything. It's like, man, we've got 6 months of money in the bank. If I go full time on it, this is crazy. It's crazy, but I can hopefully, make the line go up and up and up and up, and then either raise some money or, hey, we're profitable and I don't need to raise money or whatever. It was just kind of one of those things where I'm looking at it going, well, there's an opportunity here. And,
Right.
and it's either do that or just let it burn. It's like
Right.
sell it off, or just like, what's the point at some point,
Right. At some
So
point, yeah, you wanted to turn it into either sort of do something different, or at least turn it into something that was your one time. If you can do something kind of real and interesting, this was the time, it sounds like.
yeah,
Or like you said, it's kind of hard to kind of keep it as a side thing forever.
right,
Especially if you got paying customers and things like that. At some point, you got to kind of make a decision there, it sounds like. So you made that,
right.
you made that decision. Now walk us through a little bit of that. It's kind of a lot of people go through this journey, right? I mean, startups are born every day with similar stories, right? I was doing this thing, I was working over here and this other thing, and I had this idea and I started it, and congratulations. Walk us through how that's been. Now you're not quite, a little over probably 90-ish days, maybe a little more into it, especially in the middle of a
50.
pandemic.
Today's the 50th day. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like in the middle of a pandemic. You've got at least 6 months of cash in the business to kind of get it off the ground and see if you can make it go. You're full time now. Like, it's real. Like, what's it like? What's it been like?
Oh, it's chaos. It's just you wear every hat. You never, at the end of the day, you're like, man, I got a lot done. That's awesome. Man, there's so much left to do.
Right. Exactly.
Like, I feel like out of the 50 days, maybe 48 of them, I felt like at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I got a lot done. I'm happy about that. But still, I'm happy, but I'm not happy. It's like, oh, I've got so much left to do.
Perpetually dissatisfied with, your progress, even though you worked 18 hours.
Yeah, right. And we've done a lot. Like, we got the website launched. We're reaching out to 200 plus advertisers a week. We've reached out to a ton of different states. We're having conversations every week with them. There's lots of movement and that kind of stuff. We've launched the React version, the new version of Fisheries, which is version 6, has a bunch of new features in it. We've got citizen science stuff on there now, all this like feature stuff. And literally in the last like 5 days, we've pushed another 3 updates to the mobile app. So it's like boom, 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 which is great. But it's like time's a ticking.
Time's ticking. Time's a ticking. And you launched a little over a week ago. You launched this new monetization that was pretty cool. I thought that was really neat, like sort of intellectually interesting, but also like technically, at least for the future. I mean, I know it's pretty simple right now as an MVP, but tell us a little bit about the new monetization you just launched in addition to the other stuff.
Yeah. So good question. So like I said, we started this subscription thing. We've never monetized a user before directly. And so we're kind of taking our first, dipping our toe in the water. And honestly, it's not an amazing offering right away. We call it the Pro Staff subscription. And all it does right now is remove your ads. And it has this photo ID thing where you can you catch a fish, you can take a picture of it, and it sends it to us, and a real human will identify your fish, rather than trying to do like the whole computer vision thing right now. A lot of people are like, oh, you should like do this, and it's like, man, there's 30,000 species, and we need 10,000 images per species to have a good CV model. It's like, there's no way we're going to do that right now.
And this is like a manual label, right? I mean, you're basically manually labeling all your fish, right?
Yeah, literally, we get an email, hey, like a subscriber will pay, and they'll say, hey, here's a fish, what is it? And we'll just go, oh, that's let me check. Oh yeah, that's this. Boom, done. So it's kind of like, Paul Graham's do things that don't scale first.
Right. That's right.
That's literally what we're doing. We're just like, hey, let's add this to the subscription. We know it doesn't scale. Who cares? It scales a lot better than trying to train a model on 30,000 species.
And spending 9 months and countless dollars trying to do it. You don't even know if it's going to work, right? Or if people are going to use it, right? So it's like,
exactly
MVP. I mean, will people care about this, right? At some point,
exactly.
You can optimize it later, right? I mean, so is it working?
Yeah, I mean, we
get early.
So it's a week and a half since we launched the subscriptions. We haven't advertised it or anything. It's just been there, and we've had 130 Well, here, let me check. I'll tell you right now. I got this open in my tab. Like I refresh it every 5 minutes.
Sure,
is there a new subscription?
Exactly. Analytics dashboard. How much money are we making, baby?
Nope, I'm still going out of business. Nope, I'm still going out of business.
Exactly.
131 subscribers so far,
Amazing.
and they're all sending in. Like we got 2 in the last couple hours that said, "Hey, what's this fish?" And so we get, I don't know, maybe 10 a day now since we've launched something like that. Just people saying, "What's
Who
this?"
does is this Aubrey, your business partner, doing it, or
Aubrey does it. Aubrey does it
Okay.
exclusively. He does it right now. Yeah, because
Okay.
he's the fish guy. He's got a PhD in, I'm going to misquote it, fish ecology or fisheries management or something. I don't remember what it is. Okay. He's going to slap me if you watch
it.
That's not what it is.
I mean, this is kind of how it works right now, right? I mean, low tech. You get this email or through the app, you look at it and go, oh yeah, that's a grouper or whatever, you know. And then what do? Do you email the person back, or is it built into the app workflow, or how does that work?
Well, right now it's because it's super scrappy. It's just an email back. Okay. Eventually we'll do something like that, but they'll get an email back. They'll get the first thing at the top. It'll be, this is what it is. And then it'll have the scientific name. And then it'll usually have some more information about it. Sometimes we'll link to a regulation if we know where the user was at. If he indicated it, we'll say, hey, this is the regulation where you're at for that fish. And then we'll have a link to FishBase, which is the huge database of fish with like all the information about a species.
That's really cool. That's awesome. And so the plan would be, I assume, and you can correct me, if that continues to sort of drive interest and monetization clearly, then you'll over time figure out kind of more interesting things you can do with that.
Yeah, like right now, like literally today I was working on it before I jumped on this. We're adding maps next month where you can get, there's like 100,000 reef locations, artificial reef locations. So that'll be part of the subscription. And so we'll just keep layering on things like that.
Okay. That's awesome. So man, that's really cool. So what's been the hardest challenge? I know you're 50-ish days in. I mean, what's been the hardest challenge now being in a startup, you know, outside of like worrying about, you know, what happens in 6 months, you know, revenue wise or, you know, cash wise. But I mean, put that aside for a moment. I know that's something you always worry about. Even when you raise money, I mean, you still always worry about that. You never can have enough money.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, you're always, you know, definitely worried about that. But sort of besides that, what's been your biggest challenge, and what's sort of different from being on the other side, if you will?
Mm-hmm. I think it's prioritization. Just like looking at all the things you have to do, and I could do all of them, or I could do any of them, but some of them won't move the ball forward, and maybe some of them move the ball forward in a year and a half. But like, what's the thing today? And so it's every morning I wake up at like 5 in the morning, and I'm like looking at like no, yes, no, yes, and then I have certain days allocated towards sales, marketing. I might do that stuff every day, but there's certain emphasis days that I have. And so if it's something I'm not sure I need to do today, I'll move it to whatever the emphasis day is. So if it's like a sales thing, and I'm like, I don't know, I think it's too early right now because I need to do this, I'm not sure. If I ask that question and I say I'm not sure, I'll just move it to that emphasis day. And then when that day comes up again, oh, right, I remember this. Yes, I do need to do this now. You know, that kind of thing. That's kind of how I shuffle it right now. But that's like the hardest thing in my mind is making sure I get the prioritization right. Because otherwise, if I go the wrong direction for a week, that's in tech years, that's like 5 years the wrong direction. I don't know.
Well, and in real dollars, right? That's
right.
1/26 of a pay period or whatever, like that you've just burnt, you spent your money you spent. How do you balance? Because you're still also the sole developer, right? I mean, how do you also balance sort of the technical tasks, which are unlimited and endless, like you said? And is it the same prioritization versus like all the other things that are required? Is always like to say is like, you have sort of almost 2 jobs full time, right? You have the like running the business part of the job and just all the crap you have to do just, sort of to run a business where you have $0, 0 employees, all that crap you have to just do. And then there's all the stuff you have to do sort of your other job, which is like, an endless amount of work, technical stuff is just endless, right? It never ends. How do you manage that? And is it the same prioritization framework?
It is, but there's overrides. You know, like if a customer or somebody in the industry wants to talk, that overrides, you know, that trumps whatever. So if I was planning on working on this part of the app or whatever at this time, and then they want to talk, I'm like, all right, I'll do that. I can do that at night, you know. So
Yeah.
I definitely shift that around. Maybe in some other world where I have other people with me, like I can kind of, you know, move the cards around, but I can't. I can't move those shells. So they won't talk to me at midnight, so I can't do that.
That's very similar to how I manage things a lot, as you know. Like I do a lot of things during the day, often that can't be done at night, and then I can shift my nighttime because I control that time, right? Or my weekends. And then I have to do my second job often, you know. So,
right.
you know, because like during the day, you know, it's hard to talk to an employee at 1 a.m. in the morning, right? Or it's hard to, like you said, talk to a vendor or a customer or, you know, some meeting or VC or whatever, you know, at 9 p.m. in, you know, most cases unless they're overseas. So, you know, you end up sort of almost having to, like, you know, have two jobs, and otherwise you're trying to kind of context switch. And it's hard, as you know, it's hard to program and context switch. It's hard to be on a sales call and then try to go spend 1 hour to code something and then stop and then do another marketing thing. And then, you know, it's just really difficult.
I can't do it. My brain can't do it. Like if I know I have a meeting in an hour and a half or 2 hours, it is really hard for me to sit down and code. Unless it's something small.
That's right. I'm the same way. Like today, I have two of these today, and it's hard because I knew I could work on some small bugs this morning that I knew I could get done before sort of the thing this afternoon. But I knew that was going to be it because I couldn't start something big that I needed to start because I couldn't invest the time because I'm very similar. If I'm like, this is going to take multiple hours, I can't stop in the middle of that. My body won't let me do that, right? My brain or whatever. And then context switch. And if I do, I might as well not even start it because when I come back to it, like I won't be in that zone or whatever. I won't, you know, I'll mess something up or I'll forgot exactly where I was or, you know.
Right.
So it's a tension that pulls, right? I mean, it's really hard as an entrepreneur. That also does a lot of the actual work of the product in this case. So I can imagine you're going through, and it's a tough thing to learn, right? Because you got it's a bit of learning how to sort of manage both sides of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's like a little bit of anxiety you have to manage too with it because you're like, man, I got to get all this stuff done, but I got this call, and then you got to, at least for me, I got to check my attitude because it's like, no, this call is really important and it's good.
Right.
Don't be mad at it because you can't get this thing done. Like, you know, there's like all those emotions that come into it.
Right. Well, this happened to me a lot. I don't travel anymore for like most people, but back at, you know, AppC, it was very similar, right? It's like, man, I don't want to go on the road for 3 days and I got to go see customers. I don't have time. And I really just want to stay here. And it's a bunch of stuff I could get done. But then I do it. And then I feel all the rewards and sort of the how good that was. I'm so glad I did that. You know, I really was not looking forward to it. But then when I actually got there and did it, it was like, oh my God, it moved the business forward or this customer relationship or whatever it was. And then I was like, crap, I got to remind myself to not have anxiety, not be upset because, you know, and then what's funny is I'd come back and I was more recharged. I had different ideas that, you know, I wouldn't have had if I was just sitting, you know, in the office or whatever. And so it's a tension. But I think you said the right word. Anxiety is a good way to describe it because it is a lot of tension and anxiety that gets pulled, and you're not always sure, especially when you're the person, right? You're not always sure if you're making the right decision because sometimes you just make the wrong decision, right? And hard to know.
Well, and you're right too about the emotion afterwards. It is kind of funny. Speaking engagements are that way too. Like with me, I'm like, I'm dreading it all the way up until the time I speak. And then afterwards, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I did that.
Right.
And meeting
a person or, you know, something happened, it wouldn't have happened. You're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I went and did that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And meetings are the same way and, you know, all that. It's funny. I don't know if that's a developer thing or if people that are non-developers have the same anxiety. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know. We'll have to ask. I don't know. I'm not sure either. You know, me and you both are similar. I mean, but you know, I don't know. We'll have to ask. So what happens from here? I mean, clearly, we'll check back in 6 months and see if you're still alive or if the fish all died. But fish will always be there, right? They were here before us, and they'll be here probably long after we're all gone. So seriously, like, clearly you're now in this mode of like full time, 100%, 100,000% focused on this thing to make it work. It's not a side hustle. It's not a project or a hobby. We're trying to turn it into a real business. Where do you go? Let's look out over a year, and it's hard and entrepreneurial time. That's like 10 years, but like,
right.
if things were to go well, I won't say great. We know what the downside is, right? And we know what the really amazing upside is, but like, let's just assume for a moment, things go well. Like you're satisfied at the end of 2020. What are we in 2021, 2020, 2021, right? What happens at the end of 2021 and Rick's satisfied? You're never like completely happy as an entrepreneur, right? Because there's like a million other things you could have done or missed opportunities you could have had. But like, let's just say everything goes well. You're happy for the most part. Like, what will that look like for Rick Blalock?
Well, yeah. So for our current initiatives, it would be getting a lot more states involved as partners, as customers, because that has a direct effect on how many users we have too. Because our users are in the places we support. So we support regulations and activity and stuff from Maine to Texas, California, Hawaii, and the Bahamas and the Caribbean. So, but we don't have partnerships with all of them. And every time we have a partnership, it just enlarges our user base. And then we just added freshwater last year for Florida, and we want to add it to all the other states. So it's just that kind of stuff, if we can enlarge that, and that's actually part of, from a business perspective, our moat too, because when you lock in these government contracts and we're their partner, that really protects that moat, our business, if you will, and what we do. So that's really important. So locking up a lot more of them. And then this subscription stuff just proved out that this is a legit thing. I know it's a legit thing because I know there's other apps that do similar things in this industry, but we need to prove it with our stuff and our offering.
With your own data, your own offering. Yep.
Exactly. Our own special stuff, So that being proven out this year is vital for us, for sure. So those are the two big ones. There's other things we're trying to do. We have an API now for the regulations, the only people that have it. And we have some government agencies that want to use it. We have other apps that want to use it and stuff like that. So that would be great. I'd be really happy if we get, 5, 10 of those customers by the end of the year. And actually, I had a call with some students from University of Alabama yesterday, and they want to use it in their project.
Nice.
So it's really cool. So
that is really cool. So, and then if you look out some number of years forward, is there a deer rules or a bird rules or a some other species of non-fish thing that you could see, or no, you're just going to always be fishing and that's anglers and that's it?
So we've talked about doing hunting and even some of the
same problems. It seemed like maybe
it is the same problems. Yep.
It seems like when you hunt in Nevada, it's different than Texas. But even in Texas,
all the lands and stuff.
There's public land, which is different than private. Which and even within like dove, there's different types of dove depending on the migratory, non-migratory. I mean, there's a lot of complexity, and like you said, the fines for doing the wrong thing are dramatic. And no hunter wants to like shoot the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, just like an angler wouldn't want to do that, right? For biggest conservation proponents there are the people that do this usually, right? So like, how is that an opportunity, or what do you think? I mean, I'm not nailing you to it. I'm just curious.
No. So
how you think about it as a business?
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely an opportunity. We've had several agencies even ask us about it. One of the CIOs of one of the states asked us about it too. There is a company called Onyx that are based in Montana, and they've done a pretty good job at that. So so someone else has solved some of it. They haven't really done it the fish rules way,
Right.
So there is something there about the user experience being the same and all that kind of thing. Honestly, though, where I would love to see us go big picture, like taking over the world kind of thing, is there's we're getting into commercial regulations now. We're launching a commercial regulation app.
B2B.
Yeah, commercializing commercial fishermen.
That's what I mean. But like a business to business type. I mean, I guess in the sense that you're not selling direct to consumers as much as you're selling to, and this, your current model is sort of B to government, B to G, like you're kind of selling
B
to
to G to C.
Yeah, and to C, like you said, like, you're starting to get into B to C, right? Where you're monetizing direct customer. But in this case, you can kind of go to a business and say, it sounds like, you fish commercially. Is that what, am I getting that right? You like professionally fish to sell the fish to restaurants or whatever through an intermediary. Is that how that works?
Right. So there's commercial regulations, but then there's permits that go with those.
Oh,
and those permits are like they're kind of like taxi medallions. Maybe that's the best way to so they're finite, limited resources that you own, and it's an asset that you buy.
wow.
And so people will buy, and there's limited ones, like red snapper licenses in certain areas are,
yeah.
And they're $1 gazillion.
That's it, right? Nobody else can have it once those certain pool of people have it.
Right.
Wow.
Or what'll happen is, certain groups will buy those things, and then people will fish under them using their permits. So
okay.
The big thing that I would love to do is us to be the people that do those permits, manage them, and even do the seafood stuff. So there's these things called fish houses where commercial anglers come in, and they can't distribute to the consumer directly. They have to go through a fish house or something. Most of them, depends on their permit. I would love to have a digital fish house where all of that stuff, we have the permits, we have everything, and it's kind of gig economy. If you want to go out and fish commercially, go out and fish, and then maybe we have the fish sold by the time you get back.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that how it worked? I wasn't sure. So like if I wanted to be like semi-pro, I'll call it, like on the, whatever, sometime during the week, I wanted to go, like, I'm a big fisherman, and I wanted to like get paid for my work. I mean, is there a way to do that today? Do you have to have a commercial license to do that? Like if I wanted to take a recreational fishing thing, let's say I went and caught, within regulations, I went and caught red snapper. But then I wanted to like come home, and instead of me cooking them myself, I wanted to like sell them or wholesale them to someone else. Could I do that or no?
Nope, you can't.
So personal use only.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Without a commercial, without this commercial permit. Wow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, but to use the Uber example or the gig economy example, what you're saying is I could potentially sub underneath a commercial permitter, whatever that would be called, as like as a subcontractor, if you will. I could catch what they're looking for or what they need more of or something like that. And then I could get paid to do that effectively under their permit. You're saying that could be possible.
It's possible. Yeah. Now there's all sorts of legalese and, caveats and stuff. But
much like the taxi industry or the limousine industry and, other delivery type industries. Okay. But it is possible.
Right. It is possible. And then imagine, one of the big problems with commercial anglers, like I talked to a few of them, and one of their frustrations is sometimes they don't know what they get paid at the end of the day. They have to wait a couple of weeks, and it's chaos. If you see these fish houses, they're throwing fish in these bins, and somebody's writing some on a piece of paper and handing it to them, and then in 2 weeks they'll know. Sometimes like, oh, okay, this is how much I made 2 weeks ago. But imagine if you had a digital fish house that did this stuff. Like literally, if you're reporting it on the boat, we could sell it before you even get back. Right. So it solves a lot of problems on either side. You got a chef in a restaurant that's trying to buy something. He wants swordfish for that night or whatever. There's lots of things you could do with it.
Wow, that sounds like a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, so that's like, that's where I want to go.
That makes a lot of sense. How do the commercial fishers today, do they always fish for like the same thing, and they always know when I get to shore, everybody's going to be buying, whatever, tilapia or something? Or is it like they just sort of catch what they can catch, and then they determine, like you said, is it like they just kind of determine what was bought and what was not even, valued at all? Is that how it works? I mean, how does it work?
So if you were talking to somebody that actually knows this stuff better than I do, like Aubrey and some others, they would have a very opinionated view of it. From my conversations, commercial fishermen and stuff, and how I understand how they do it. There's some people that literally are just like, I'm just going to catch what I can catch that are within my permits. And then others, they rig their boat and they do things really specifically for something specific, tuna or whatever. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag. And then there's like some buddies of mine, they do it on the side every once in a while, and they have like a swordfish permit and one other permit. And so they're specifically fishing for that because that's the only permits they have. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It just depends.
Okay. Wow. What an interesting opportunity. Well, as we wrap this up, I mean, it's fascinating. Especially you, to talk to you as kind of on this journey of being an engineer, being sort of manager of people that are technical, and then doing sort of the side thing and sort of being an entrepreneur, and then kind of transitioning. What is the sort of biggest advice for? There's lots of people that want to go through this journey, very similar, like that have aspirations either to do something on the side that then turns into a real business, or to leave their job and sort of start something that hopefully turns into something big. What's your biggest advice now, having gone through it? Like what was sort of your perception before, and now what's sort of the reality, and what's your biggest advice for someone considering this?
Man, I would say that there's so many things. So one is get some sorry, what?
I said give us multiple then.
Yeah. Definitely have people that are advisors or counselors, or just, if like with me, I've worked with you for 10 years. So there's a lot of things of just working under you that it is kind of just in my head ingrained or whatever. So there's some of that stuff has to be muscle memory, or you just kind of default to, but having advisors and people that help you is vital. Back to that prioritization problem that I mentioned I think that I would probably really struggle more with it if I didn't have all that. And I'm watching, Y Combinator videos and Paul Graham and everybody else all the time too. So that's all influence that helps. But without that, I don't know how I prioritize, right, moving fast and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that I think that's really important. Advisors, counselors.
That's really good. And there's not enough. And like you said, there's sort of these abstract things that are great, books and videos and people that talk about, this and that. And then there's like, okay, like I got this very specific situation. I know you and I were texting the other day about, investor feedback. And it's like to have someone on the other side that's actually gone through it thousands of times and sort of say, is this real, or, what do I do, or how do I respond, or, whatever the sort of circumstance that's very specific to you and your situation. It's concrete. It's not abstract anymore. Like you got to have that, because sometimes it's great. It's great, reading this thing or, whatever, but, everything's so situational these days, especially around.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you end up wasting a bunch of time if you don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of and stuff like that. Because like, I think with that one conversation we had, you're like, hey, don't waste your time with that guy because X, Y, Z. I'm like, okay, well, that's great, because I've been wasting too much time. So, like for me, the development side, I don't feel like I waste a lot of time because of the experience there and all that kind of stuff. But definitely on the business and definitely on the investing side, like I'm contacting all these angel investors and stuff, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, So having an advisor
to help, trust me.
Yeah, right. I'm starting to wonder, actually.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder.
It's amazing. Luck and has so much to do with success, and certainly the more money you have, the more lucky sometimes you are at some point. So they forget. They think, often we all do, right? We all contribute, our success to often all the things we did right, and, the things that we avoided wrong. And often it's timing and luck and 500 other things that kind of worked out right in your favor. And certainly it's hard work and a lot of other, I'm not trying to disparage that, you have to sort of work hard as well. But it's funny because as humans, I think we contribute celebrity or some of these other things to like something they did that we couldn't do or we didn't do, or special that we don't have. And often it's like they're just as shocked as anybody else on how they got to where they got, right? And so you have to. It's humbling sometimes, like to realize that often investors don't know either. They're smart people. I'm not disparaging any investor, but often it's They don't know, you know way more than they do often in a lot of cases, because you're thinking about it all day long and they're trying to make a snap judgment call based on some short conversation or some short thing you sent. And there are people too, and they have the same problem you have, right? They have to prioritize. They have to look at 1,000 things a month and pick 4 or 5 they're going to go spend some time with, right? And out of that 20 or 30 or 40, one will turn into an investment. So they have the same problem in a different way, right? And so it's knowing and understanding how the system works. It's sort of like engineering, right? Knowing sort of what's happening behind the scenes is often as important as like what you're trying to do, right? Because if you know that, then you can sort of reverse engineer your way into like creating the right thing. But if it's mysterious, this sort of Rubik's Cube, and I understand how it works, sometimes it's like, the black box makes it hard. And so I think fundraising, running a business, all these things are very similar. Once you kind of understand how it works, then it becomes a lot easier to sort of reverse engineer your way into like, what do I need to work on, and what do I do first, second, third, et cetera? Where do I spend time? Where do I not spend time? So
Right. Yeah. And another thing too with me, I mean, again, this is on the investing side, raising money is totally new to me. But I'm learning more about their perspective, investors' perspectives on things, and it's helped me empathize a lot more. Like I swear I change my investor deck every day based on new information that I get. I'm like, oh, I see. So they have to look at 200 things a day, and this is anytime you hide this information, then this is what happens over here. So like the empathy part, finding out what they go through, it really helps.
And I think that's true in most things, right? I mean, it's if you can empathize with the other side, and that's part of why we started this sort of podcast, was to help business people and technical people better communicate, empathize, think about different ways of approaching, both technical and business problems, right? And bringing sort of that together. And I think this is a perfect example of that, right? Sort of only looking at it from one dimension, and then now sort of you're seeing the other side of it. It seems so easy when you read TechCrunch, right? So-and-so raised X millions of dollars, right? You never hear what happened after, right? They don't write about so-and-so, burnt through $20 million and folded, right? Generally, they don't write about that. Sometimes they do if they're salacious enough, right? But you only read about the beginning, not the end. Or sometimes you read about the end if it's really, really successful. But 98%, as we know, things just generally fail, or something like that. I don't know what the exact number is, but very high, right? Majority of things that you invest in or you spend time on fail as a business, right? As a rule. So it's always interesting to kind of talk to people that are in the middle of this and get good insights from them, especially people that are going from they're sort of working for the someone else to sort of becoming their own entrepreneur, becoming their own CEO, their own boss, whatever you want to call it. And so it's been really a great conversation. We really appreciate it. Thanks very much. How do we find Fish Rules outside of just going to the App Store and typing in FISH, not PHISH? Or how do we find Fish Rules?
Well, you can go to fishrulessapp.com. That's our marketing page. And we have fish.management too for the government and agency people, nonprofit people. That's how you find it.
And then how do we find Rick Blalock online and social?
Oh, okay. So on Twitter, I'm R.Blalock, BLALOCK. Just and then also my name, rickblalock.dev. I blog about my daily things every day. I did it I started doing it as just a habit, like a journal kind of thing. Actually, how we started the daily log stuff at Pinpoint. I was in the habit of doing it. I'm like, well, I'm going to keep doing it, but I'm going to publish it online. So there's a lot of random things on there that probably don't make any sense. They're like bullet points of things I did that day, but that's what I'm doing. I'm putting it up there.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to do a wrap. Appreciate the conversation and look forward to the next time. We're going to have you back on in the future, and you're going to talk about how amazing it was to get past that 6 months.
I hope so. I so hope so.
Okay. Congratulations. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.